I am playing Terraria with 300 times spawn rate, meaning that thousands of enemies can spawn in at once. Will I be able to take on all these enemies? Will I even be able to defeat the wall of flesh? Watch to the end to find out. But continuing on from last episode, we head down into the mines, in search of anything that we can find from the Hell Biome enemies, like a Demon Scythe, a Sun Fury, or a Bat. But to get a Sun Fury, we're gonna need an Obsidian key from the dungeon. On our way over to the dungeon, we find a meteorite that crashed down. This won't help out too much considering that there's no piercing weapons you can make out of meteorite. And while we're in the underground jungle, I want to farm for stingers and spores. This will allow us to get the blade of grass and making this one step closer to the knight's edge. And this is quite easy since we're getting swarmed by a bunch of enemies that we can easily kill. And with all these resources, we can make the snap thorn. Albeit not the best weapon we can use right now, but it is pretty good for fighting off swarms of enemies. Meaning we are ready to go into the dungeon. As soon as we get over here, there's a huge swarm of enemies guarding the front door. Even if it is challenging to beat all these monsters, we do have enough piercing to get through all of them. And as soon as we get in, we find a wooden chest with a key inside of it. As we're getting chased by a bunch of skeleton heads, I see two golden chests that are locked. Inside one of them being the shadow key, but we die right after retrieving it. But we're not too upset since we got what we went there for. And I can guarantee you that's gonna get even more crazy later in the video. While we're down in hell, we might as well farm for some more loot. With all these preparations, I think it's time for our first fight for this video. We summon in King Slime and we start doing massive damage to him, with us doing a lot of range attacks. But right after beating him, we escape as fast as we can so no enemies can spawn. We jump up to a sky island, but then a swarm of herpes spawn in. By the way, I swear I did not mean to call them herpes. Inside the sky island was a star furry, but there are way too many harpies up here. Let's just... Now that we have a better weapon, let's head back into the dungeon to see if we can get the Muramasa. After running away from a massive swarm of difficult enemies, we find a chest with a yo-yo and a suspicious looking eye. We open one final chest to get the Muramasa. I summon in the Eye of Cthulhu to make a little bit more cash, but the thousands of enemies nearby make it a little bit more difficult. With us barely having any HP, we beat the Eye of Cthulhu. On our way back to the base, we head into the corruption and craft the Knight's Edge, meaning we can start edging on our enemy. We start heading over to the jungle to start looting up for the wall of flesh, heading back to our barrier to allow us to kill hundreds of enemies at once. And I realize to our left is a giant beehive, and I haven't fought the queen bee yet. So to make this video interesting, I'm gonna fight the queen bee. I set up a small platform and then I summon her in. And since I blocked off the beehive, no enemies can get in to disrupt our fight. We keep jumping over the queen bee, dodging all of her attacks, with me using my projectile attack whenever she's up in the air. And after a few minutes of attacking, we finally defeat her. And when we head out of the beehive, there's about 400 enemies waiting for us, all coming from every single direction. They overwhelm us and we get sent back to the base. We start heading down into hell, and after fending off from a bunch of enemies, we start building our hell bridge. And this was no easy task because there was hundreds of enemies spawning in at once. But a few hundred blocks later, we finally finished the bridge. If you think it's gonna get way more intense than this, then please subscribe because it will. We're about to fight the wall of flesh, and I honestly don't even know if we're going to be able to. With all the enemies that are going to spawn near us, I don't even think we're going to get close to beating him. But there's no point in not trying. We start throwing dynamite as much as streamers talk to kids, throwing stacks and stacks of bombs to the wall of flesh, blowing up like every fucking roguelike video I've seen this week. I might make one. The wall of flesh gets on me like Dr. Disrespect gets on K, and with one final blow, we finally beat the wall of flesh, which immediately opens the damn floodgates for thousands of enemies to spawn in. And it's only gonna get even more difficult from here, with us barely being able to destroy the demon altars with thousands of enemies chasing after us. With so many enemies, it literally sent us up into outer space, which was a massive mistake with hundreds of harpies and a wyvern chasing after us. But we do accomplish our goal by unlocking palladium, or calcum, and titanium. As soon as we get back home, a goblin army spawns in, but since we only have to be 100 enemies, we got this done in about 15 seconds, and all we have to do after is clear up all the remaining enemies. But I think it's about time that we finally extend our base. But first, we're gonna need some resources. So we head into the desert, and there's a giant sandstorm going on. With so many enemies, it sounds like it's gonna blow up my computer. I'm not even joking, there was about 1,000 enemies on screen at one point. And unfortunately, the hollow was right next to the desert, making it even more difficult to get to the right side of the map. We head into a blue moss underground biome, and right next to it is an underground house. Inside being some Dune Rider boots, being an upgrade of the Hermes boots. Right above the house, we find the wizard NPC since we just beat the wall of flesh. But considering how much time we spent down here, a swarm of enemies started spawning in. And from one of the enemies down there, we got an ancient hollow key. Heading down to look for Palladium, we find the Goblin Tinkerer, and we buy everything we can off of him because he's probably gonna die as soon as we leave. Start a quest to get Palladium or Calcum and Titanium, and while we're down there, we find the Skeleton Merchant, and we buy some weird brews off of him. Heading back up to the surface, we craft the Palladium or Calcum and Titanium pickaxes. But there's a few more things I need to do before we make our base look amazing. Things like getting the Crystal Vial Shard, being a complete upgrade from our Vile Thorn. So we have to defeat a Hollow Mimic. As we get expecting multiple attacks from this difficult mini-boss. It starts turning to dusk, meaning that we're gonna have to hurry before we build our base. We start paving out the ground for the top part of our base. We start making the perimeter for the main part of the house, with me using my iconic stone slab and wood pairing. Before filling the inside of the first half, I extend it out to the second half, adding a decently large tower to the right side. Now that the shell is complete, we start filling the inside, adding in beautiful wall designs to the inside. If you like this design, then make sure to subscribe because I make beautiful designs like this in every single video. But with all that done, it's time to fight our first mech, the Destroyer. Since we had the Crystal Vial Shard, we were able to pierce every single segment of him, dealing hundreds of damage per second. With us being able to dodge all his attacks and making sure to take out all the drones, we're able to slowly defeat him. With us being dragged to very low HP, we're able to barely defeat him, which then again opening the floodgates for thousands of enemies to spawn in. I decided to try fighting the twins, but it doesn't go as I expected, with piercing attacks not doing very much for us. With us dying, I realized how much more difficult it's going to get from here. So from all the hollowed bars I got from the Destroyer, I decided to make hollowed armor and a hollow repeater. Being paired with Jester's arrows, we're still able to get our piercing effect. Oh shit, it's not enough piercing, oh my god. The hollowed biome is not a place you want to go to at night, especially with this mod on. But while we're here, we might as well get some pixie dust. Soon after, we go down into the underground hollow to get some souls of light. And I know I came down here to fight enemies, but I didn't need this many to spawn in, with us easily being able to find extremely rare enemies. And you might be wondering, what am I actually doing right now? Well, since we're not nearly strong enough to defeat the next two mechs, I decided to do something absolutely insane. I'm gonna craft the Ankh Shield pre-planted, which most people I know don't even craft it till the Lunatic Cultist, being so annoying to craft that you probably won't even come across it in a normal playthrough. So the reason we're down here is to get the Bazor, being one of several items that you need to craft the Ankh Shield. But with so many enemies spawning very quickly, we're guaranteed to get all these items, securing us the Ankh Shield. We jump up as high as we can to go catch us a wyvern, meaning we can finally craft us some wings. And as we approach pretty far into the video, I want to ask you one last time to please consider subscribing because it's absolutely free and it helps me out a lot. Thank you. As you can see, we're back in the dungeon because I want to take revenge on every single skeleton in here. Not a single one is safe. I have died in this dungeon too many times to count. I'm gonna give them the good old 50. But it's just so satisfying to hear the crunchiness and the clean noises of it shredding through so many enemies at once. Now that I've finally extracted my rage on all those skeletons, I decided to buy the mini shark from the arms dealer. And as you may have guessed, since I got the mini shark, I'm gonna head straight to the ocean to get shark fins. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. There was more sharks than I have subs, so please subscribe. We come out of the water and... wait. Heading back to the base, we start a fight with the twins, with me rapidly using the titanium repeater. It's really difficult to dodge all of these really hard attacks, and unfortunately for us, it gets way worse than this. But we get Retinizer into the second phase, and we start working as Phasmataz. After getting Retinizer very low, we kill the twins, and we win our fight. And finally, after getting enough resources, we make the Mega Shark. After both of these fights, we want to get ready for Skeletron, because this is going to be the hardest fight of them all. We head down into Hell to get two different items, this being the Unholy Trident and the Magma Stone. But of course, we get lavished by thousands and thousands of enemies. We finally get both of the items that we're looking for. But as soon as we head back up to the surface, a goblin army spawns in, making for a perfect opportunity to get tons of resources. And between the goblin army and heading down into Hell to farm for hundreds of enemies, we get a ton of really good weapons and really good accessories. But somehow, as we're defeating a bunch of enemies in Hell, the fucking wall of flesh spawns in. I don't know if you noticed, but I killed a voodoo demon which just so happened to be above lava. All because there were 300 enemies on screen at once. But honestly, I don't know what I'm expecting. It's Terraria, but with 300 times spawn rate. But before I end the video, I really want to ask you to please check out our Discord and please subscribe, because doing both of those will help me out a lot. Our Discord has tons of really unique and fun people to hang out with, and you can also suggest video ideas. And if any of that sounds fun to you, links in the description, please go check it out. And with everything said, that's how it went. Thanks for watching. And if you want to see a third episode of this, make sure to subscribe.